So we're in. So here's what's interesting. So now I have to change my entire intro because, like you, I do. I had it all set up completely different in my head.
Yeah.
All right. So let's rock. All right. So folks, welcome to this edition of the Pivot Play podcast. I am J. Anthony Thompson, and I am here with literally half of Twiintone Productions, Entertainment, Publishing, because these dudes, of what you see, and that's not the ghost of Gregory Hines, right? It's just
absolutely
my man. But he is one half of a duo of twin brothers who are authors, screenwriters, actors, filmmakers. Like, they entered the biz deep. We've known each other for a long time. And so I seriously, dude, I really think I was maybe going through my bookshelf or something, and I found the book, which I hadn't seen in a while. So yeah, this was, and then we'll have to go back. So anyway, we got a lot of stuff. We've been talking for a minute while we've been trying to locate your brother.
Yeah.
Right. And this is going to go out like this. So I want him every bit of embarrassment
Absolutely.
that comes from him not being here.
I wish it was something you could turn on in the car and listen to it.
Right. So do me a favor for our audience. So let's go back and from your recollection of how we met. Do you remember?
I do. I know it was through Darla. Darla Mitchell was actually I met her through a film contest. It was called the 48-hour film festival. So you had to get together. You come to a meeting spot, and you meet other filmmakers and writers and actors, and you actually pick teams, and you go and make a film in 2 days and submit it. That's the contest. You have 2 days to make this film and submit it with people who you just met or people you already know. So we met Darla at that event through a mutual friend, and she started working on some projects with us after the contest. And we used her house to shoot a couple of things. And so, yeah, we're moving on with some other projects. And then we started talking about, music production and music composing for some of the projects. So lo and behold, she mentioned how she met you, which I'm not sure how that happened, but she mentioned you, and she brought you to us, and there we are.
Okay. So I would have never put this story together like that.
Yeah.
I'm really horrible with stuff like that, because I thought I met you guys. I thought maybe through the plays, but she was a part of the play stuff.
Okay.
And the play stuff, right? The play productions.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. So it was through meeting her, because I was writing, composing and musical director.
Okay.
For those plays, and she was involved somehow. I don't know how she got, but I just know she showed up. And
okay.
so there lies. But we've done some stuff since then, right? Let's see. So Between Us Love.
Between Us Love, yeah.
All right. So tell the audience what Between Us Love is.
So we Between Us Love was the story of twin brothers. Everything we write is always about twins, because Hollywood refuses to write twin movies, so we write them. So it was about twin brothers. They were both police officers, and the long and short of it was they both ended up dealing with the same woman who got pregnant, and because our DNA is so close, she didn't know which brother the father was. And when their daughter, whose name was Lovely, is what they named her, when she was born, they kind of co-fathered her because her mom passed away, and the brothers were sharing custody of the daughter. Love had a terminal illness. She had cancer, and the brothers were taking care of her. So Between Us Love is kind of like love is between the two brothers. And ultimately, as the story unfolded, it was like the love between them was kind of getting lost, because the younger brother was still bitter about the whole relationship that his brother had on the side with his.
Well, it's not a bad thing to be bitter about, but keep going.
I didn't get that. I thought you should be share alike. I don't understand that. We shared a womb. We can certainly share a woman. I don't understand this.
Wow.
Yeah, he was taking it rather personal, man. I really didn't get it. Yeah, but I remember you composed 2 songs on the soundtrack. The only 2 songs that there was on the soundtrack.
Right. Yeah, and then all the other theme music. So and I think that was actually the first film that I worked on.
Really?
So yeah. So I appreciated the fact that you guys trusted me to do that. And I every now and then I'll go back and listen to the song, Love Is Lovely. Oh, that's right. There was a second song, the one at the very end of the movie.
Absolutely.
You're exactly correct. Wow. Okay. See. Yeah, but that was so that was cool. So that was the first thing.
Treasure of Today and Love Is Lovely.
Yep. Those weren't bad songs, dude.
They weren't bad songs.
They were not bad songs.
Yeah, man.
So, and I remember that was in a film festival. But take the audience back to, I guess it really kind of starts here, right?
It does. It's funny because
I'm trying to get this without all the light. There you go. There you go. I'm not great with product placement.
For years, we did exactly what you're a master of. We were into music.
Mm-hmm.
We rapped. We eventually built our own studio. We started writing songs and producing music. So that is what if you would have asked us, in our teenage years and in our early 20s, what we saw ourselves being, we wanted to be the next Babyface in LA, the next Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the next, we wanted to be that songwriting duo.
Right.
But we wrote, especially myself, I wrote everything. I wrote poetry, I wrote songs, I wrote raps, I wrote short stories. So I wrote everything. My brother had the idea. He came up with the idea of that book. He actually we thought about making it a film first, but we had never done movies before. Right. So I said, you know what? I'm reading a lot of urban novels right now. So I said, maybe we'll try the literary angle. So we wrote the book, and then it did so well, and people enjoyed it so much. My brother insisted. He's like, I'm telling you, man, it will make a good movie. We should try it. So we didn't know how to write screenplays. So I took a couple courses, got some books on it, and taught myself a little bit about screenwriting. Mm-hmm. And we wrote the script, and we actually submitted it online to a couple of like film.org and a couple of websites where people who were looking for work that work in the industry. And we actually got like a full team that volunteered their time. We got actors that volunteered their time. Once you start networking with people in that business, it's always someone who knows somebody. And we put the team together, and I think it was like a 6-day shoot. We wrote the screenplay. We shot the film in like 6 days, and I think the most we've spent money on was probably like craft services and costumes or something like that. But everybody volunteered their time, and we actually won 2 film festivals with the film, and it was our first time out the gate. But I'm looking back on that film, and I look back on that screenplay, and I'm like, we won film festivals with this. Not that it was horrible, but I'm just looking at my growth. I'm looking at the evolution.
So yeah, you can go back and look. But I think that if there were issues with that one, they were probably more technical.
Probably.
Color correction and sound, like you can tell when you change, cameras. And I remember when we were shooting, oh God. So remember we were working with Tony Roberts, and we did we were working on the pilot for Darla and the Boys.
Yes.
And so I remember that one of the things is we had different cameras. We didn't have the same cameras,
and you can see the difference in the camera.
You can see the difference. I wouldn't think that you would, but then just things are so much more sophisticated now.
Yes.
Just in terms of just being able to capture sound, right, for filming and things like that.
Absolutely.
So how many films have you guys done? Right, and you never even introduced yourself. I don't know, it's just rude to the audience.
I'm sorry. I am rude boy. Pop. I am Troy Parham. I am part owner of Twiintone Entertainment, and more recently, Small House Publishing. I just started a publishing company with a friend of mine. She and I just released our first children's book, and we're working on the second. Twiintone Entertainment is working on that. I want to say this is going to be our 12th film.
Okay.
I want to say 12.
All right. So and one of the reasons that I really wanted to talk to you and Trev, wherever he is. Well, if he's not here by the end of this, we just put out a missing persons, bulletin.
Absolutely.
No. We'll give it a day and decide if we want to look for him at all. Right.
I haven't. I'm glad you said it that way because I haven't decided whether or not I'm gonna look for him or not.
Right. So it's all good. So hopefully as well. But one of the things that with the podcast in general, Pivot Play is really all about the idea that life can be going along a certain way and then present you with some sort of a challenge. Conditions change, environments change, economies change,
Right.
Climates change, and you have to pivot. You have to find or figure out something else to do. And so it's going from my life is going this way, boom. Now I need to go this way. So you guys, go along doing your thing, and then you're in music, and then shift and then you go into film. Doing music is so much easier at a certain level than doing film.
Right.
But what I think that has fascinated me with what you guys have done is the way you talk about, the whole meetup with Darla is that in filmmaking, there just seems to be this community of people, right? So you get these actors and you get the writers and you get directors and you get people who, actually, work cameras and people who work sound and,
right.
And then these people can come together and do something. And a lot of times people are not getting paid. They really are doing it for the credits.
Sure.
So there's this element of camaraderie. There's this element of teamwork. So just talk to me about that dynamic and how that synergy seems to happen in filmmaking in a way that I don't see it happen in other arenas.
And, it's interesting you said that because my brother and I talk to each other all the time, how we banged on so many doors and we did music for 15 years. And there was something that we could never see ourselves not doing. And then introduce novels, introduce movies. And we kind of never even looked back on music. It took off faster than we imagined. And, like you just said, you never know which direction life is going to take you in. And we always compare, like you just said, the difference in the camaraderie of filmmakers versus the music industry. And I'm not throwing shade on the music industry because of my own experience. I'm only speaking from my own experiences.
Sure.
It was all this. I know you hear people say the crabs in the barrel syndrome, and I haven't noticed that in the film community. I have noticed that it seems that you can't get people like when we first did our first record back in 1989. You could go to the local merchant, the local drug dealer, the local whoever had money, and they would put money into you going into the studio or whatever. But it's like now, the local Philadelphia filmmaker, goes to those same, and maybe it's the economy, I don't know, but you go to those same merchants. And I will say that filmmaking can be a little more expensive than making music. But it's like closed doors. Nobody wants to take out their checkbook for independent filmmakers. So there's always
so let's talk about that. So how have you guys been able to finance all the work that you've done?
It's mostly on our own. We have had an investor or two that I really honestly believe just really, really believed in our work. And we had relationships with them through family members and things like that. But to go up to Joe Schmo stranger and say, hey, here's my deck, here's my business plan, I want to make this film. And, because I think the reality of it is most people who there's a saying that goes, only fools invest in films, because unlike music, people like the same things a lot longer than they do in films because it's such a broad, you're catering to people who got all these different wants. So a movie that may have been a success a month ago, you pitch that same script to a producer a month after that, and society didn't change their mind. They don't like that kind of movie anymore.
Right. So is it not coincidence that it seems like you can have movies of the same sort of type and feel that all come out together at the same time? And
not a coincidence.
Say again?
It's not a coincidence, no.
But here's the thing though, right? So let's say I don't know. Let's take the whole Biden and Kamala Harris dynamic.
Sure.
I can see that, and I can go down this hallway, go in my studio and go clickety clack, 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 come up with songs, my single, boom, boom, bam. And by the end of the night, I can have a song.
Sure.
That can be like distribution worthy and ready to go. Film doesn't work like that.
No.
Right. There's a much longer, working process and gestation. And then Lord knows by the time you get done filming, I don't know if a lot of people have an appreciation for this. By the time you get done filming, then you have to go into editing.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's a long time in and of itself, and rendering. Sure. So there's just so much. So it's a much longer process. So to be able to find that thing that has sort of immediate significance, sort of commercial readiness and all that, I think is a much more difficult formula to try to figure out. That's just my view of it.
Absolutely. And because you're involving, unfortunately, unlike a music producer like yourself or a painter or a sculptor, you have to involve so many people in making a film. Is why, like you just said, it's not as to have it ready to go is not as easy as it is going to the studio making music. And like you said, having a story or having some content that people are going to say, oh, hey, we love this. This is the next big thing. And it may even be something that was like a film that they just loved a month ago. Yeah. And they decide they don't like it anymore.
Yeah. So filmmakers to me are kind of like inventors.
Yes.
Right. Like you can be tinkering away in your lab and come up with something, and it could be good, it could be bad, it could fit, it just blow up in testing, anything can happen. And then you just keep going, right? But you're after something. Sometimes you don't necessarily know what it is. And so I do kind of look at filmmakers kind of like inventors. You might get that one big thing that, everyone knows you for.
Sure.
Or they might never hear of you, right? It's certainly that possibility. So I'm trying to draw a parallel to people who have a pursuit, right? Whether it's to finish their education, start a business, grow a business, create a nonprofit. And when they don't see immediate results, they quit.
Yeah.
Right. They get discouraged. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I've known you guys for, it's well over 10 years now, not longer. And you guys are still grinding, and I say, you got to have a mind to grind if you're going to get your hustle muscle on, right?
Yes. And
you guys seemingly keep finding the energy to pursue this dream. What keeps you engaged?
I would say, well, we like true stories. One thing we know that will always remain about people is that they like, you take shows like The First 48 and all this reality TV, those things will never die. They're like the news, even though we have other ways of getting the news now, people would tune into the news and they knew they were going to hear the same bad news every single night, but they would tune in every night to see who was killed, who did, and all. They didn't tune into the news to see the weather. They wanted to tune in to see all the bad things that they could see on the news. So we find true stories. We find stories of history. And since we've now, especially myself, since I do most of the writing, I found a way to make stories that people could either see themselves overcoming these obstacles in these situations, or even if it's something that they've never been through, they know someone, or they could compare their story to this story and say, oh, damn, if they made it through that, like you just said, I know if they didn't give up, I know I won't give up.
Right.
Whatever we feel like can engage people's attention, inspire them. And even in some cases, it's part of life. Some things have to be let down. We got to be realistic when we're telling stories too. Sometimes the stories are let down. Sometimes it's not a happy ending, because life's not always a happy ending.
Right.
But, it's important to teach people, in those stories, how to overcome things, how to face obstacles, even if it means it's a lose-lose situation, still how to even deal with a lose-lose situation.
Right. So I know that Troy, you act, you write, which I want to guess and say that you prefer writing over acting, or is that not true?
Actually, you know what? I enjoy, I can't help write. I don't know what it is. I feel like Alexander Hamilton. It's like I write just because I can't help it, but I really do enjoy becoming other people. So I enjoy the characters, developing the characters when I'm acting. So it's probably going to be a balance. I will say writing takes a lot more time. So, but, I'm an introvert. I like being, by myself and writing and reading and learning things.
Is this whoa. Is this a recent diagnosis that you're an introvert?
No. Even when I was younger, I would go out because I didn't want to be the one that was the square. So I would hang out with my friends, but I was totally okay if no one asked me to go out to a club or to go out to a party. I was totally fine with that.
Okay, so and again, I'm trying to for the sake of the audience, because like, dude, we have literally spent hours just cutting up and just joking, busting on each other. Like we just, like even the process when we were working on the pilot, right, which is kind of funny. Like people here, and I think I sent you guys. I found some of that footage.
Oh man, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh man,
it brought back memories, man.
Yeah, but we had a ball doing it. We all worked well together.
Yeah, we did.
And you had, in my opinion, anyway, you just had a bunch of people who were just funny.
Absolutely.
Right? Because we never wrote a script for anything. It was like
all on the spot.
It was Curb Your Enthusiasm before Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? Like we really had an outline and just kind of brought it together. You have a really a comedic genius in Tony Roberts, comedian. Most people would know who that is. Got special on Showtime and stuff. And then you got Troy and Trevor, and then me, right? So I'm like undercover, like I slide in there funny, right? I'm not stand up funny. I might be. I don't know. People keep asking me like, you should do stand up. I'm like, yes, not for a living, but but I love it. We had a great time. And for people who don't know, because you'll probably never see this was a story that had so many true underpinnings to, right? So the name of the story was Darla and the Boys. So Darla was a recent divorcee that was left with this big house, and more, there was more expense than she had cash flow for it, which there was some element at that time. There's some element of truth to that. And so she decided she would rent out, rooms in her house. And so me, the novice wannabe music producer, and then Troy and Trevor, the twins, the filmmakers, and then Tony Roberts, a comedian. So there's a lot of truth in it. But man, some of those scenes were hilarious.
Yes,
like
indeed.
when you guys were trying to raise money.
Oh yeah,
for your.
Yeah, and then we always producing Mall Girl, the Mall Girl song.
Oh yeah.
And and we had no director either. Nobody was directing us anything.
We were all directed.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so I know people have no idea what we're talking about. But So let me ask you about this, because I know, because we talked about this in our pre-discussion, is how much you love technology. I mean, I do. No, I'm joking. I know you're not a fan, which is kind of odd, right? Because technology really is. It's like going from like leaded fuel to like high octane unleaded. Like it just helps you do so many things so much easier, right? And so I know we were kind of talking about software and screenwriting. I want to come back to that. So I think it's important. But because of technology, right? So so this is my phone, but dude, I can film on my phone.
Exactly.
I can edit, and I've seen examples of work that has been done from a quality standpoint.
Yes.
It's phenomenal.
It is.
You can do, and I've seen, people really pursue whole films on this. Like that's you think back to when you guys first started, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge leap in capability. But what it also means now is anyone who can have one of these and a little know-how can now be a filmmaker, right? They can wear that label.
Absolutely.
So, and not to kind of position you as like the old school dude, right? But how do you react to this? Like this is different. How do you react to this now more portable, much more easily accessible capability when it comes to filmmaking, period?
So what I would say is, because I'm a product of both eras, in my opinion, sometimes technology, people confuse it for the easy button. So whereas though we come from a time where we had to cut and paste and splice film to edit, you know, today's songwriter, today's producer only knows, their one laptop and they got all that software and everything goes in there. Um, for me, I think that it also, in most cases, and not everybody, it makes them miss detail. When you have to drive a nail by banging it, you pay more attention to what's going on versus a nail go pa pa pa. You're just trying to get through it quick and easy. So if you don't come from an era where you had to pay attention to detail and actually know how to build it from scratch, you miss. It's to me, in the filmmaker that would take an iPhone and just make an entire film with that one phone versus someone who knows reels, who knows that analog era. It's a difference in the quality of filmmaking, and maybe I'm biased in that respect, but I think there's a difference in the quality of the filmmaking. So you might be bedazzled by how it looks. Oh, this looks phenomenal, and look how quality. But do you have a quality film in its entirety? Do you have a quality film?
So okay, so I'm like you, and I think you aptly said being a product of both generations. So I remember the early days of, so with music production, when we went from having keyboards and now they had onboard sequencers, right? Where you can now start to build your own songs actually on this piece of equipment. Mm-hmm. Well, that simple act before, to pull that off, like you had to go into some sort of a studio or something.
Sure.
You could try to pull it off maybe with like a 2 or 4 track recorder, but quality wasn't great, but that's what we had.
Right.
But I come from remembering being in studios and literally, like you said, like you bringing 2 pieces of music together, like, who's the person that's got, the magnifying glass and has the razor blade in their hand
to cut it
and actually cutting and splicing, like, and literally taping this thing together. I come from that. So I get it. And now in this other world where it's, record, just delete, like you never run out of tape, right? As long as you still have hard drive. Mm-hmm. Edit, we don't like that note. We don't have to, we don't have to redo it. I can just go into software. I can move this, this E flat to an E natural or D, I can do that. So I think that for people who have a skill, that speed and those capabilities keeps me in my creative space.
Sure.
I don't have to vacate my creative mind to go now do something analytical or technical. I can stay in my creative space. There's a value to having that capability.
Sure.
But maybe it weighs on me differently because I come from that other era. And plus I'm kind of a geek at heart.
Exactly.
And so I'm still constantly amazed by just the fact that we can do it. Now, it has impacted the industry, right? There are tons of big rooms, as we used to call them, the big studios, that would have cost you $150, $300 an hour to get into.
Yes.
That a lot of them have shut down.
Absolutely.
Because people have realized that I don't have to go there to do this. And there's still, Grammy Award winning projects that are done on really small digital setups.
Sure.
So I said all that to say and try to get you on the record with this, because now my next question is this. Mm-hmm. As you look across the interweb, right, there are tons of all these little mini series, right? And some of them put out by comedians and get some actors. So it's like now anyone with a couple cameras and a microphone can kind of have their own show on the internet, right? They put on YouTube, Facebook, whatever, and they have an audience.
Yes.
Right now, from my perspective, I'm not going to say that it's great acting, right? I'm not going to say that it's great writing, but it does have an audience.
Sure.
What's your response to that?
So, and I try to say things without sounding like a grumpy old man. But this is just, my experience and my opinions on things, and this is the gospel according to Troy Parham. I believe that right now people are accepting what they can get. Sports, entertainment, this constant battle of who's the better. Is LeBron going to be better than Jordan? Is this, like you're saying, is this digital filmmaking better than? What these people have to understand is this: you're comparing an era of easy buttons to an era of DIY. You're comparing an era of anything goes and all these freedoms and open this and open that versus an era of different restrictions and different obstacles to overcome to get things done. I've met a lot of young filmmakers that are in school that we've hired to do projects, and surprisingly enough, when you're asking them about what their favorite things are, they're talking about black and white movies.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a person that knew that they needed that. They need that essence of this business to be good at what they're doing. They can't come out and say, "Oh, where'd you learn how to script? Oh, you know what? I went out and watched the Matrix, and that's how I learned." That's what you learned from Matrix? Nothing before that? Not Return of the Jedi? Not, so they know that they need that history. They need to know that stuff to be considered good at what they're doing.
Right. So, so I sometimes refer to it as the the dumbing of America, right? I mean,
sure.
And I think that people's attention span is short, but I think that their palate is underdeveloped in a way, right? And this is just me using big words to be grumpy old man, right? Probably, in some ways, but I mean, I don't. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna do it. It's my podcast. I'll just do it, right? Like I'll pick on rap, right? Like this whole genre or category was called mumble rap, which may be very appealing to some people. To me, I was like, I don't know the substance, right? And, or some of these people who are quote unquote singers, and the fact that there's a tone coming out of their mouth, whether it's on key or not, or flat or sharp, is deemed singing. I'm like, oh, I guess it is. And so now that we have, like you said, this plethora of easy buttons, you don't put Pandora back in the box. Like that stuff, it's not going to go backwards.
No way.
But how does that challenge what you do? Like I said, we'll talk, and we really will get to the screenwriting piece. But these are things that take time to develop a story, right? To develop these characters and a plot and the sequencing and how you bring things together, right? In terms of how things work. And if you have people just like, and it kind of in a way, dude, it's almost like the way we did Darwin the Boys, right? We took a bunch of talented people and we were able to put something together. Now, granted, other than cracking us up and, it never really saw the light of day. We didn't pursue it in that way. But it's kind of the same thing, right?
It is.
It's kind of Darwin the Boys with an audience.
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. So, but then at the other side of me, it says, it's like you take someone who's been raised on fast food, and you take them to a 5-star restaurant, which has this highly developed, very sophisticated menu with all this great mix of flavors that people spend a lot of time working on, and they look through the menu. They don't see a lot of words that they know. They don't see things or combinations of things that they think would taste good. And the first thing asks is, you have a hamburger? Right.
You got a taco.
That's the right. You have, so people attempt to bail sometimes on quality because they just don't know what it is, right?
Absolutely.
And it's kind of interesting. I don't even know how people hearing this would take it because again, we've been in similar areas and working together. So I think that people who are in business generally, I think the same way. Like we're talking about more on the creative side in the arts, but I think business is pretty much the same way. I think that a merchant today probably has just as much frustration with trying to figure out who's their customer.
Sure.
Because the customers are so finicky, because the customers aren't really loyal, it's very difficult for a merchant, person with a storefront business, whether it's a restaurant or some sort of trade or whatever, because, people's like, I'm just looking for the lowest price, right? I'm looking for what's the cheapest, what's the fastest. So I think that the appetite in general for quality and maybe some of that appreciation is not there, which in my opinion, Troy, really makes it more difficult for somebody like you.
So I'll say, I know we talked earlier. So you take a company like Disney. Disney's built their brand, and their brand is going to be their brand. It's never going to die. It's never going to get bad. It's almost like back to sports. Like I was saying, you recruit as a screenwriter, I know the mechanics of putting a screenplay together, and I know what a good story is. Do I know what people are going to want from day to day? Not necessarily. So I surround myself with people who have their ear to the streets on those kind of things. We love hiring students because they're up to what their generation wants. And they're good. They're hard workers too. If you got a set full of student filmmakers, man, I'm telling you, they work. Not that the older guys don't work hard too, but they're trying to make a name for themselves. So they really work hard. They work hard. And you find those that are willing to listen to direction and willing to learn, and we learn from them also. So it's like bridging the gap. I don't think that it's an industry that either could survive alone. I don't think a 22-year-old can come out and start making films without having that knowledge of going with the wind, or knowing the history of how George Lucas got his start, or without knowing those things. I don't think they're going to come out and be a blockbuster filmmaker. You need that history, just like we need to have our ear open to them telling us, try this, try that. This is hot right now. Like you said, no, put this mumble rapper on the soundtrack, and the soundtrack gonna blow up. Well, I'm not a fan of the mumble rapper, but I'm not a music maker either. So I'm gonna listen to people who know.
Right. So for the sake of the audience, explain what a screenplay is, please.
A screenplay, in my opinion, a screenplay is a literary orchestra. And when I say that, because I've written plays, I've written screenplays, I've written novels, and I will say that a screenplay is the most difficult one to write, because in a novel, you're speaking in one voice. In a screenplay, you have to develop all these different voices from, in most cases, just one person or maybe two writers. I've never seen like a screenplay written by 10 people. Like sitcoms get written that way, but a screenplay most of the time is written by one or maybe two people. So in order to know all the elements that go into, and here's a huge mistake a lot of screenwriters make right out the gate. They think that they're writing a movie. You're not writing a movie, because movies are motion. Movies are filmed. They're not written. A screenplay is written. It's a literary work, and it's supposed to be a story. You're telling a story in your screenplay. Don't people spend so much time on the POV and a close up of this, and I think it would be good to zoom here, and that's not your job unless you're directing and writing the screenplay. Then that's different. But in most cases, as a garden variety screenwriter, you're supposed to tell the story. You're supposed to develop those characters. You're supposed to give them flaws. You're supposed to know when they're supposed to have their arc, and you're supposed to know when the story breaks into the second act and breaks into the third act, and how you're going to have a really strong closing, and how that really strong closing ties in with the beginning of the story. It sounds simple in theory, but it really isn't. And so many people miss the mark on it because they don't take the time to actually study and find out how to make it work. So there's levels to this. There's levels to it.
Troy, for the record, it does not sound simple. All that stuff you just said does not sound simple at all. Let's be very clear about that. It does not sound.
Maybe it's just because I love it so much. It's just when I took a course at New York Film Institute, and when the very first instructor I had broke down a scene from The Godfather, and I've seen that movie 20 times, but when he explained what was going on in that scene from a writer's standpoint, I just left with my jaw to the ground. Like, all this time, after you think you know everything, you don't know shit. Excuse my French, but you don't know shit. Seriously, you know that you enjoyed it, but if you had to sit and write it and explain to everybody what's going on in that scene and why, explain what the antagonist in that scene wants, and what he's going about to get it, and what's in the way of him getting it, and why the protagonist wants to stop him, and what's their motivation, and what do they have in common. Is he broke down the whole scene, and I'm just like, am I sure I want to be a screenwriter? Right. I thought I knew. I had written scripts before that. I'm like, yeah, I don't know shit.
So let me make a confession to you. I have never seen The Godfather.
Wow.
But I have seen The Matrix like 20 times.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know. Just I don't know, something about stats, Scarface.
You realize how many times I could sit down and like right now I could break down the screenplay to The Matrix to someone who's not a screenwriter, and they will look at it completely different. They enjoyed it. They enjoyed the effects. They enjoyed the fight scenes and the music and the way it was edited. But really, to explain to someone Neo's journey from beginning to end and exactly what points everything happened to him in the story and through the screenplay, they would probably never look at the film the same way again. They would still enjoy it, but they would
So
see.
we know that Neo is like a Jesus archetype, right? We again, I've seen that movie 20 times and probably all of the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the whole development of the story, what I think is particularly interesting in, say like a Matrix, like that trilogy. I don't know if people have seen it, but it really is amazing on so many levels, because it's not, you get this story of Neo, but then you just get this whole construct of the Matrix.
Yes.
Well, the Matrix to me is really just a blown out conversation of quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and the seventh dimension. Like, there's just a lot of things in there. And now some of the bases of something like the Matrix reminds me of the 13th floor.
Sure.
I'm sure you've seen it, right? Which a lot of people haven't. Go see the 13th floor. It will blow your mind. Yeah. Right. It's such a simple, right. And so there's a lot to unpack and unfold. And I think that's the reason why it's an easy movie to watch. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the development of a screenplay, when you're going to have a trilogy, like, you got to be thinking about all that stuff up front. Mm-hmm. And I think it's more a surprise to the audience. It's like, oh, there's a Matrix 2. Oh, there's a Matrix 3. Mm-hmm. And being able to bring all those elements together. Mm-hmm. And so I find that fascinating. And I think probably one of the franchises that is the most sophisticated with it, to me, has got to be the Marvel franchise.
Absolutely. You can take the Marvel franchise and go all the way back to the first Iron Man. And you remember at the end of the film where he confesses that he's Iron Man in front of all the news media? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the way the film ends.
All right.
Fast forward to show you, again, brilliant writing and guys who on that team who knew already where the franchise was going. It's hard to believe that these guys already had 10, 12, 15 screenplays in their mind and exactly where they wanted to go with it. But that's why Marvel makes the big bucks.
Right. And they drop those nuggets in there, right? Sure. Like the whole revelation of Captain Marvel and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
So he survived. He survived where he was, and he made the Iron Man suit, and he became Iron Man, and then he confessed that he was Iron Man at the end of the film. And then there's Endgame, and that brilliant villain in Thanos, who, because once you get a villain who in essence is noble, he really felt like what he was doing it had some nobility to it. He felt like, I'm doing you all a favor. I don't want to kill you, but you're in my way. Because he was so unbeatable that, and they embed that in your mind in the opening scene of the first one when he body slams the Hulk, who ultimately can't be beat, right? So here's a guy that pretty much toyed around and slapped him around like he was his pimp and then body slammed him. So now for the rest of that film, you're like, what the fuck are they going to do with this guy?
Right.
All the way to the end of the second film, which was they brought everybody back and they have this ultimate standoff and fight. And then at the end,
be clear though, this is so geeky, right? But Thanos really punked the Hulk and Bruce Banner, right? Remember, the Hulk didn't want to come out.
Didn't want to come out. Mm-hmm.
He didn't know I want to come out. He's like, no, that was not fun. What just happened there? I'm not coming out. But I think that the forethought and the sophistication, right? Now we deal with this in other arenas, right? Again, your favorite topic, like technology,
right?
And people don't understand that by and large, most companies, by the time they put out version 1, which is really just a sophisticated beta test, most of the stuff is never ready.
It's just testing. Yeah.
1.0 of anything is a good thing to stay away from, right? But they've already thought out the history of that piece of software, maybe for the next 10 years, right? Yep. And they leave, and the importance is, and you think about it the same way we're talking about telling these stories, is to build this foundation that we can add to it, supplement, and really make it diverse without ever having to do what we call a forklift upgrade. I never have to go back and restart the whole storyline, right?
Exactly.
And rewrite the whole piece of software. It's always because it's one is to my economic advantage to do that, right? To be able to have these iterations as opposed to a complete and total utter destruction of the platform. And so I think that movies and screenwriting, there is a brilliance to it, right?
Absolutely.
And people who can really think ahead. You know, the last one I'll mention was when, and I keep going to these superhero movies, but when the Batman versus Superman movie, and then the beginning of that movie was actually the ending of the Superman movie, you know, going against Zod, but now you're seeing it from a completely different perspective.
Exactly.
Really, and it was literally an on-the-ground view of what was happening above and the destruction that it brought down, and how this kind of created this animosity between these two characters. So, but I think there is something to be said for just thinking through something, and how do you take people on a journey. And I think that
they think far ahead. When you're talking franchise, like George Lucas, he already had Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, and Empire Strikes Back. They were already done before we even saw Star Wars. He knew that Empire Strikes Back was going to be the darkest and most difficult for all the main characters, and then Return of the Jedi was going to be the homecoming and the victory. He was thinking 3 films ahead when you're thinking franchise. They're already thinking ahead.
Right. Yeah, and Fast and the Furious falls into that as well. And even with the untimely death of one of the stars, who just happened to have a twin brother.
Yep.
See? So, you know, Trevor may come in handy.
He might. He might. If you ever saw it, I'm good. Listen, now I might look for him. Now that you mentioned that, I might actually look for him.
Right.
Because now we found a purpose for him now. Yeah.
So how is it just because you guys are twins, you've been able to do all this work together?
No. If people listen, if we could put a hidden microphone in the room when we do things, people wouldn't believe how much we fight.
I've seen some of the disagreements. I won't call them fights, but I've seen. But you guys could just as easily decide to go on your own, you know. But you guys have been at it. So let's leave the music from the first day that you guys started to do film, or maybe when you started to write Mr. Malik. How many years has it been that you guys have been working together like this?
30.
Right. So I'm going to say the fact that you're twins, some of that glue has to be in that.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
30 years, Trevor can be a bit of a pain in the butt. And now I'm just picking on him because he's not here. And he should have been. So I'm going to rag him, and he can call me up later, but I'm going to always be bigger than him. So whatevs.
Yeah.
He's got no shot. But you guys did give me my nickname of Tony Stark. So I still have that little model on the Iron Man on the ATV. Sits in the studio. It's still there.
We knew you would enjoy it. We knew you would enjoy that. So a lot of his character. Listen, you're not going to tell me you don't see a lot of you in his character.
I don't know how you guys seriously. I don't even know how you guys came up with that. Where'd that come from?
The technology, the pimp. All of this. It's all you. It's all you.
He said the pen.
All those things that he told Captain America he was: billionaire, philanthropist, genius, playboy, all that. All 4. The 4 food groups of Tony Stark. The 4 food groups.
That's hilarious. And that is where the red in the microphone came from. These are I actually have 2 of these. My daughter was just on an episode with me the other day. I have 2 of these custom-made microphones, and they are painted red because you guys gave me that nickname back then, which I just learned today why you gave it to me. So thank you so much.
It will live forever. We saw a lot of his characteristics in you, and it just popped. It came right to us like a epiphany.
Right now, so you guys have done some television stuff as well. So tell the audience about the TV stuff you've done.
Oh, we did a show called Evil Twins. A lot of the stuff was reenactment stuff. We did a show called For My Woman. That one was pretty interesting. We played twin brothers that owned a funeral home, and the older brother, who was my character, was his wife, came up with the brilliant idea of taking people's money and actually storing the bodies somewhere else and not burying them like they were paid to do. So ultimately, somebody was chancing by the property one day, and all the rotting bodies were clearly, you can imagine how that smelled. And Yeah, they got caught and they went to jail, and it was crazy.
Did that story make national news? I kind of think I
Oh
remember
yeah, it
that.
made
I kind
national
of
news.
remember that story.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were from like Atlanta or somewhere down in Georgia. But yeah, they were literally like, taking people's money, performing a service, and then having people bring the bodies back to them, and they put the body somewhere and not put it in the ground, reuse the casket and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's efficient.
Yeah, it
No,
is. It
that's
is.
horrible.
Listen,
No, that's horrible.
business was bad, so I guess they had to do what they had to do.
That's horrible. So at this stage in the game, and I won't keep you much longer. But so how do you define success for what you've done and what you're doing?
As you said, I'd say stick at it. Once we decided that my brother's a little different than I am, but for me personally, because I don't believe that I don't measure my success by money, or I don't measure it by awards or winning contests or things like that. Once you wrap your head around that success is about your level of success and being happy with what you're doing, and making a positive impact on people, you'll that's what success is defined by me. I feel like when I set out to write a book, I wrote it. When I set out to make a film, I made it, several, and I'm doing others. So when you're doing what you set out to do, that's success. If you don't, and I don't even think it's a failure if you don't get it, as long as you're always trying to accomplish that. But when you say action from the time that you start a movie until the day you finish it, then it's edited, and you can look at it, even if it's just you looking at it yourself. You set out to make a film and you made it.
All right.
So
Man, all right, this is going to be a tough and perhaps unfair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So with all the things that you've done, right? So you guys have, you've written and put out books, you've written and put films together and brought all these people together in these teams and did all this wonderful stuff, and the film festivals and the television work. What has been the one moment that in your work that has touched you so deeply that it brought tears to your eyes?
We did a film. Called Lost Light Sound Hearts. It was
that's about the no. Hold up. Who was going blind? Someone was going.
Both. They were both going blind.
Okay. All right. You can tell that, but I want to know the moment that was emotional for you.
So the two brothers were they were deaf, and then they started to go blind when they got in like their late 30s, early 40s years of age, and they wanted to have themselves killed. In their country, it was legal to have yourself euthanized because they couldn't stand not to be able to see or hear each other again. So it was almost like, for me, the moment and it was good because we needed this reaction, but the contacts that we were wearing in our eyes actually did impair our vision some. And when we were shooting the last scene, which was like the suicide scene, for some reason, developing the character and really getting into character in that moment, and actually thinking about, leaving this earth, and thinking about, not seeing my brother again. And, that whole thing actually really did bring tears to my eyes.
Okay. Did he have a similar reaction?
He did. Okay. Yeah, we spent a lot of time getting connected with each other as far as that part. And then you remember, it was we didn't have any dialogue in the film because we were deaf. So everything that we did was through, body language and through touch. And, there's a lot of moments where we were just reaching out for each other because we couldn't really see, but we were reaching out for each other and trying to, bring the character together by touch. And, just seeing what blind people who are even partially blind, seeing what they go through, that was rough to deal with.
Right. And I've done, I think some of the moments that most easily come back to mind is, like the live events, whether it's been a play or, done a lot of live recording. So, that there's this whole build up to it, right? It could be weeks or months of preparing and rehearsals and stuff.
Yes.
And so I can remember in a couple live recording situations when the concert actually starts and the red light is on and playing that first note. And I think for me, there can be somewhat of just an emotional response to that, just because it's like, now you're in the moment. I clearly got to focus, right? You got a whole thing to pull off, right? Especially in live recordings are different than being in the studio or being being the pit band for a play, right? You got to be on top of all the cues and, the background music and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
But I found some of those moments, but I think it's just because of the buildup. It's so much work to get to that point.
Exactly.
And then to see it coming together, the starting of it has actually been, if there's been an emotional moment, it's actually been more at the start than at the ending of it for me.
Sure.
So talk about some of the things you guys have done in the preparation for a role, right? Because I know some that you guys have had to learn new skills. What's the one skill where you jumping over buildings and bricks and what's it called? Through parking lots and I don't know what it's called. What's it called?
Cyclones?
No, it's not the Cyclones. It's the other movie. Oh man, come on. It's not. Clearly it's not gymnastics. I'm just going for dumb words now. Come on.
I know. Why am I not? Why am I'm having a brain fart?
And this is.
He said jumping through walls and cars.
Not through walls, over bricks. You know what I mean. It's a lot of parking lot and apartment building type stunts. You know what? You don't know. See, and this would be the one place where Trevor would come in handy.
Absolutely,
because he would know all that stuff. He would know that.
Yeah, he would.
But you guys have done things where you've done training. So just talk about prep for movie parts, and then I'm gonna tell you the one that you guys have not taken on, and I'm telling you right now, with your brother will see this, and I'm saying it to everyone that you'll show this to, and everyone I'll show it to. I'm calling you guys out. I'm calling you soft for not taking on this one twin story. But anyway, so talk about your prep, and then I'm gonna punk you. Watch what happens.
So it depends. Sometimes, like I said, we do a lot of true life stuff. So like we wrote the script for the Whispers film, and we spent a lot of time on the road with those guys. I've never been a singer, and I still remember this one time they brought us out on stage. They were doing The Beat Goes On because that was the name of the film. They were doing The Beat Goes On. And I want to say we were in Virginia or somewhere. And that was the last song they were doing. They brought us out and we performed one song with them. Now, mind you, they're 80 years old. We performed one song with them and my ass was kicked. Okay. I'm talking about y'all do this night in and night out. And I was a young man at the time. It was like 3 years ago. I'm like, I can't. I don't know how y'all do this. I was done. I went home and I went back to the hotel, slept that night, man. Yeah, and that was just performing one song. That's all I did. So after that, Trevor and I said, listen, man, I know we think we're in shape. It's almost like people tell you you're in shape until you get into a fight. I can play basketball for hours. I can do these things. But until you get into something that is really straining you mentally, physically, and everything, you don't realize how out of shape you are. Right. So we definitely always, whenever we're preparing for a role, it's always a heavy workout regimen, a heavy diet regimen. We do 10-day green cleanses. And then we do a lot of working out, a lot of making sure we get our rest. We spend a lot of time with each other, drilling each other as far as the dialogue goes, because we criticize ourselves. We're our own biggest critic. So we're always running lines on each other. Like, how's this sound? How's that sound? How should I say it like this? Or especially if it's a conversation that we're having together. We want to make sure it hits home and it feels natural. So we do a lot of running lines on each other.
Right. So, all right, so let me tell you that the part that I think you guys are afraid of, and you can prove me wrong.
Okay.
I would love to see you guys take on the twins. Do you know who they are?
Which ones?
Like twins.
No.
These are the what are these guys? 6'6". They're like these world-renowned dancers.
Okay.
You had to have seen these guys.
Tap dancers or?
No. This is like kind of hip hop-ish, like modern. Yeah, it's the modern.
And they're 6'6".
I think they're that tall, and they are that talented. I cannot believe that the twins. If you go on the Twitter, on the Facebook, put LE twins, and you will find they are amazing. But they're very much connected. Like these guys are on stage, and some of their routines are not choreographed. They just work with each other and practice with each other so much that it can be in perfect synchronicity.
Twins, okay.
Twins. So yeah, go look them up.
All right.
And I'm challenging you, if you guys could pull off even a minute and a half of anything that they do, and then you road dogs. You are dog.
I can't be 6'6", but I challenge accepted on the rest.
Well, no, I'm gonna give you guys. You can take it down to foot because that's about where you guys
all right, that'll work. That's perfect. Now I challenge accepted on the roll, but I can't change.
Yeah, no. Yeah, but the fact that these guys are twins, they've been around for long. I'm just surprised that because you guys are connected to so many other sort of twin. What's the best advantage to being a twin?
Oh my goodness! You know what? I tell people, and there's another back to me being introverted. I never had many friends. Neither one of us. Everybody knew us, but we only had a select and any given time in our lives, we only had a handful of friends because we always had each other. So it wasn't, we weren't in need of a friend because I always had my brother.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's probably the biggest advantage for us is that we always knew you got somebody you can count on no matter what. Somebody that's going to, go through every journey with you. And, we just happen to be, I've seen twins that hate each other, which I don't understand how that is. But, my brother and I always been close. So we always had somebody that was going to ride with us. We were going to ride with each other no matter what.
Okay. So that's what's up. So do me a favor. And then really, we kind of mess with Trev, but this is, people don't know, this is mild. If we were all in the same room, we would skewer and barbecue each other. Absolutely. And it would all be love. It'd be all
sure. He's really the one that gets it started. He's like Hammer, let's get it started. He's always the one that gets that stuff started.
Yeah,
and then you're glad to play along. You're happy to play.
Oh, dude, bring it. Bring it. I'm there for it. I am not afraid. We used to do that back in high school. We used to have a lunch table, the round lunch table.
You all right? Oh.
Yeah, you good talking. I'm on the phone.
No, I'm being interviewed is what I'm being.
Exactly.
I'm not even,
that's what I mean. Come on, Dad, I'm being interviewed, damn it. Yeah.
But no, we would sit around at these round tables at lunch and we would just bust on each other, man. We would just go at each other. And the king the next day would have they would put 2 or 3 chairs on because they would stack. Sure. And you were the king, and then you had to be dethroned. So we went at each other like as a sport. So when Trev starts that nonsense, I'm like, dude.
He said, I'm all for it. He said, I'm all for it.
Listen, I'm deemed lethal in 49 states, man. You do not.
Let me clear my throat. Hold on. Let me clear my throat.
Oh God, hilarious! Man, please. Yeah. So again, we've had so much great fun together. So before I end this, I was trying to drag it a little bit to see if Trev could get on, and just as soon as he said hello, I was going to end the interview anyway.
Right there, yeah.
Right there. It's
awesome,
hey,
that would have been awesome, man. Oh my God.
So again, appreciate you for taking the time. I'm really super happy that we decided to proceed in Trev's absence. So I hope all is well with him and whatever it is that he got pulled into. So but no, seriously, dude, it's really great to speak with you. It's been a minute.
Yes, sir.
But I'm glad you guys are doing well and hanging in there. Any final words to the audience?
To you, first of all, thanks for actually thinking of us and having us on here. It has been a while. We got to make sure we stay in touch. It shouldn't be years or months in between that we get together or at least talk and, catch up. And, any filmmakers or writers or anybody out there that is whatever your dream is, whatever it is you're chasing, I would just say stay at it and just know that don't let other people give you what their idea of your success should be. Your success should be how you feel.
Right. So, and how would people reach you or Trev, who don't even know who that is?
Yeah. Well, you can find us. It's really easy. All our social media pages are Troy Trevor Parham. It's just one word. TroyTrevor Parham.
Just like that.
Just like that. Troy Trevor Parham on Twitter. Troy Trevor Parham on Facebook. Troy Trevor Parham on Instagram.
So what about Twiintone, which is with 2 I's?
2 I's. TWIINTONE Entertainment. The same way on all those pages. As long as you don't forget the I, you'll find us. TWIINTONE Entertainment. Oh, LinkedIn too. We're on LinkedIn, but everything is the same. No fancy names. Troy Trevor Parham or Twiintone Entertainment.
My man. All right, dude. Hey, be well.
Yes, sir.
Again, that dude, I'm gonna get him. We may have to come back just to
have one just for him. You can just square up and just go in on him. Yeah.
Oh man, it'll be part 2, but it will be brutal.
Absolutely.
It'll be a cage match of just him getting skewered.
Sure. I'm all for that. I want a front seat for that.